Hello everyone, you're welcome to this edition of The Inside on Equinoxe Television. I am Bablet Jonathan. In this edition of the program, we're going to talk about a statement made by the President of the Republic of Cameroon, Paul Biya, during the Paris Peace Forum. And the statement has been interpreted as an Anglophone assimilation confession. The head of state highlighted the possibility of integrating all the Anglophones into the French majority part of the country, which was an attempt which has not worked, and he decides now to confer a special status on the northwest and southwest regions of the Republic of Cameroon. And he said during that meeting that measures are being taken to implement the special status recommendation of the major national dialogue. We'll talk about this, and we'll also talk about the municipal and legislative elections announced for February 2020. Meet our guest in some few seconds. Our guest in this edition of the program is an associate professor in political history and international relations. He has carried out a wide range of research in peace and conflict studies, humanitarian action, geopolitics, international negotiations, and of course democracies and good governance, comparative education, citizenship, minority and human rights issues, leadership and community development. He has lectured at the Department of Political Science and Public Administration in the Savannah State University, Georgia, United States of America, and the School of International Training, and he is the founding president of the Heritage High Institute of Peace and Development. Professor Willibrod Ngwa, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Babila, for coming to talk with us on pertinent issues. It's really my pleasure to be able to talk to Equinoxe.
All right. We begin with the statement made by the President of the Republic of Cameroon, Paul Biya, during the Paris Peace Forum, which has been interpreted as an Anglophone assimilation confession made by the head of state, who highlighted the possibility of integration of the Anglophones, so attempts of integrating the Anglophones into the majority-speaking, French-speaking parts of the country, which has not worked, and he has decided now to confer the special status on the northwest and southwest regions of the country. What's your take on this statement? Is it a confession of deliberate attempts to assimilate the Anglophones?
Well, I think it was a welcome international declaration, by President Biya, stating it on an international stage, so that the entire world should be able to recognize this public confession that there is a people called Anglophones in Cameroon, or if you like, the Southern Cameroonians, whom have many throughout of about 60 years, there has been a genuine, interest to assimilate them. And let me say that this has been the subject of my over 22 years of research, because we highlighted these tendencies of assimilation 22 years ago when we did a master's on the Anglophone problem in Cameroon, clearly highlighting, which was rejected severally. I think that even the president himself, when he was doing the declaration of summoning the major national dialogue, questioned the idea of marginalization of the Anglophones and came out to talk about the national dialogue. I think that the announcement that there has been an attempt to assimilate these people, which has not worked, and that is why they are coming up with this special status. The revelation started even with the summoning of the major national dialogue, because the president refused marginalization, and then he turned around to say, okay, we are giving a dialogue. For the very first time in the history of this country, a president spent more than 20 minutes highlighting a particular problem and trying to see how people can come together to talk an issue.
You talked about this attempt of assimilating the Anglophones in the Republic of Cameroon so many years back. How was that attempt being manifested? By who? Who was doing what?
Well, the point is that it has been done politically, economically, and socioculturally in all aspects of life. It has been done through the educational system. It has been done through the economic system, the legal system, and all of that. Of course, we are talking about Ohada laws in Cameroon. Ohada law is being practiced in Cameroon. It's just what we have in English is just a translated version of the French original version, but not aspects of the English private law. So what we are saying is that there has been attempts by the majority Francophone Cameroonians, not because the majority Francophone Cameroonians actually wanted to marginalize and assimilate the Anglophones, but rather because they have an inherited culture of assimilation. Because they lived under the culture of being assimilated by the French, the colonial master, they have assimilation seemed to have become part and parcel of their daily existence. And that is why when they were dealing with a people who lived indirect rule, who knew how to select their leaders and manage their own good, they thought that was being rebellious, and they did everything politically, economically, and socioculturally to try to assimilate, to try to cause these people who have a different cultural perspective to be able to live, think, reason, act, and even eat like the Francophone majority, with basic French tendencies.
And this was contrary to what the Anglophones have inherited from the British, the culture of self-rule.
Of course, the culture of indirect rule, where the people had the right to choose their leaders and hold their leaders accountable. And each time a leader could not be accountable democratically, he was replaced. Where they had a culture of speaking out, of not being submerged to unnecessary fears. So you see, it is very common in this country, when anything is not going right, they want to know what the Anglophones think first. What do the people of Bomenda think? Because there are a bunch of people. What do the people of Boya think? Because these are a bunch of people who have a different cultural values, how they appreciate politics differently, they appreciate humanism differently, and they are always questioning to get correct answers to be able to live on. So these people felt somehow that for about 60 years there are attempts at assimilating them. From assimilation, the failed attempts, to marginalization. And marginalization was pushing them out of the margin of power in order to craft out strategies to actually assimilate them. And that is why you see the first language in Cameroon is English. I mean, it's French. That is why you see if an Anglophone or a Southern Cameroonian is appointed to in a public space, the first language or the predominant language that he's going to use will be French. I mean, it's dancing to that assimilation.
But the Constitution says the two official languages are equal.
Of course, the Constitution says that the two official languages are, that is in principle. But let me get back to the 1961 Constitution. When the Constitution was adopted, it said that in case of translation, the French version will be authentic. It placed English language as a secondary language. But over the years, it moved to place the two languages at parity. But in the practical realities in the field, it still maintained the French language over the English language. If you permit, Babila, I was in class 2 days ago, the second year of the University of Yaoundé 1. I had not taught those students before. And when I entered, the class was very quiet. And I greeted in English, and you get a guy shouted, "Bag." And the class was frightened and thought there was something happening. And when I asked him, "Please, can you stand up?" He stood up. "Tell us exactly what made you shout." And he said he thought I was speaking French. And just because I spoke in English caused him to shout, despite the crisis. So there is a mentality issue which has made it very clear.
I want to get this very clearly. He was angry?
Yes. It was a sign of protest because I spoke in class. I mean, 2 days ago. I'm talking in November 2019. A second-year student. So that is not, you just need to speak English, and some people tell you, we don't understand the language you're speaking. Can you try to speak in French? So we have gone with a policy of assimilation to trying to, so coming back to the point, I think it's a public confession which we have been working on, that people have to work on, that the president himself refuted, but overtly in this public space had the opportunity to say, these are people whom we have attempted to integrate, and they have held tight to their own tendencies, to their own cultures, and it has become very difficult, and it is evident that because of these attempts, it has plunged Cameroon into a cataclysm.
I was going to ask you, Professor Ngwa, how has this Anglophone assimilation attempt contributed to the escalation we have today in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon?
Yeah, of course, let's say that that is the main reason, because the assimilation began with the uprooting of major constitutional provisions of the federal constitution. Let us realize that the two entities were internationally recognized structures of the United Nations, and by the time they were coming together, they had each a government, each a people, each a government. I mean, the prime minister, a territory, a language, a culture that was different from the other. And when they were coming together, the basement of coming together was a federal constitution. But the first aspects of assimilation was to unroot some of the important few clauses in that constitution which protected the minority situation of the Anglophones, with the tendency of assimilating them. We can cite them: Article 1, Article 9, Article 18, Article 47 of the Federal Constitution. We can read that, we see how these important clauses were uprooted to give the Francophones and a simple majority, a voting assembly, an opportunity to clamp down on the minority. And let me say that your question is, how have these attempts at assimilation contributed to the current crisis? People are seeing the crisis today. Let me say that just 3 years after reunification, we had Dr. Bernard Fallon, who wrote his famous private or secret letter to Amado President Ahidjo, protesting and saying that if that is the way the reunification would be managed, then it will be regrettable. Let us note that in the same precepts of assimilation, the country was divided into 5 regions. The Anglophone region was ruled under one entity, and the entity had a prime minister and a government, but it had a representative.
A vice president?
No, it had a representative of the president of the republic at, we call them the federal state inspectors. So the president of the republic appointed federal state inspectors, and these federal inspectors all were Francophones. The federal state inspector in Boya, in the southern Cameroons, was a Francophone who was answerable directly to the president of the republic and not to the prime minister of that region. So what we are trying to say is that the assimilation has started a long time ago. The language French is a language of the military. That's the official language of the military is French. That is so everybody knows that. At the NAM, all of these big professional schools, the official language is there as French, not English. So the tendency has moved on, and people have been able to protest. We know about Abel Mukong, the prisoner without a crime, how he moved from one prison house to another. We can call him the Siseko of yesteryears, because the protest moved on severally. We can talk about the AAC1, AAC2, the zero option. So the attempts at assimilation have caused the Anglophones to come together once or twice to be able to articulate their views and make suggestions to the government on how they want to be managed. But let us realize that AAC1 was held before AAC2 came. I mean, government officials were doing everything to prevent these Anglophones from holding. And let me say that one of the manifestations of this assimilation has been the fact that the government of Cameroon has done everything possible to prevent Anglophones, the people from southern Cameroon, to hold one big meeting of theirs to select their leaders and articulate their positions in a much more clearer manner. That is why you realize that the Northwest and Southwest regions were almost the only regions which were not properly constituted as an entity to be represented in the Grand National Dialogue.
And before that major national dialogue, Christian Cardinal Tumi, the moderator of the Presbyterian Church in Cameroon, people like Dr. Simon Munzo, Elise Smith, the imams of the Boya and Bamenda Central Mosque and other leaders came together to hold what was called the Anglophone General Conference, which never took place after it was postponed on several occasions, postponed several times. It never took place, and the organizers said the Yaoundé administration did not give them the go-ahead, the green light to organize that event.
I think that just confirms what I'm trying to say, that it has been a careful political strategy to prevent these people to meet together and clearly choose their leaders and articulate, who can properly articulate their problems, with the intention that we are going to continuously assimilate, marginalize those people. And of course, with the policy of divide and rule, the governance has been able to infiltrate these southern Cameroonians to be able to get people from those regions who will articulate the problem as per the ideas, as per the lenses of the government. I mean, the Francophone majority, the government. So we have Anglophones too, who would not want any of the clear and pure and rightful representatives of these people to actually come to the limelight. Of course, because of power positioning. So it has been a very clear tendency to prevent the Anglophones not to have any meeting of theirs. And let me say, that those should be the only people in Cameroon who have been prevented from holding any overt meeting of their own that could properly articulate their problems and propose concrete, long-lasting solutions to the government. And that is what has caused us to move from one simple crisis to another, yes.
But with the recent case of the Anglophone General Conference, government highlighted security issues with regards to the unstable security situation in the northwest and southwest regions of the country, and in Boya, of course, where the organizers or the conveners had planned to hold a meeting.
No, I think that that is... I think that is a fallacy of appreciation if we had to consider and blame on security. The people who are organizing these meetings could take their own security into their hands. And if we are in a state of law, let us realize, peace upon him, my friend, the mayor, ex-mayor of Boya, was the one even stating clearly that even if the President of the Republic warranted such a meeting in Boya, he as the mayor would not permit that. But you know, it is when we live in disorder that impunity, that such declarations could come out. There was clearly the lack of political will, the lack of will to actually solve the Anglophone problem. Because if there was genuine will to solve the problem, they would actually get the people, sit together, articulate their problems. There would have been no security threat because Boya is at peace. But relative peace. Bamenda is at relative peace. Why don't we use the same military to protect the people who are holding a meeting that can come out with solutions or concrete proposals that could provide solutions to the ongoing crisis in the country?
Why will government be against a meeting that was intended to bring peace, was intended to contribute in efforts to a return to normalcy and peace in those two regions, when the government said that it's open to every initiative that is intended to bring peace?
The desire to hide the truth from the people. Let me say that the history of Cameroon is not being taught in Francophone schools. Let me say that I teach the history of Cameroon, the political history of Cameroon. I do political science. I teach political science classes. It is almost only in the 30th year of the university that Francophones have some notions of the history of Cameroon. And since these notions, while the history of Cameroon is taught in the Anglophone subsystem as from Form 3, so we see a people who already know their history, and there is a tendency of trying to block the spread of the true history of Cameroon. And that is why each time there is a movement, there are panel discussions which you guys organize. All the media houses sometimes organize to bring people who come and attempt to water down the importance of the crisis and tell their own history, which is different from the concrete history of this country. Yes. So the idea has been to continuously blindfold the majority of Cameroonians, to continuously hide the truth, put a lid on the truth so that it shouldn't. But let us go back to your first question. Truth can never be eternally hidden. And that is why the President of the Republic could announce and permit a major national dialogue. That is why, during the Paris Peace Conference, he could openly state that this 20% of a people that we thought we could integrate through assimilation, because we have different ways of integration. You don't integrate human beings. We're talking about melting pot assimilation. It's just a way of assimilating the people. By saying that, we cannot assimilate them because of held tight to their cultures, and we can give them now a special status.
You said the history of Cameroon is not being taught in Francophone schools.
Yes.
But they have what they call Histoire Géo. They have courses like that.
Yes.
In the secondary school.
Yes.
And even in primary school, the citizenship, there are other things that have been taught to Cameroon concerning Cameroonians of the French-speaking extraction, concerning the history of their country.
Babila, in 2008, I got an international award. The research was, I had to research on peace education, effective citizenship education. It took me severally across the world. And when I came back to this country, one of the things I did was to restitute what I found in the field after having gone around Cameroon 6 times. And I did proposals. We should teach the history of Cameroon. We should teach citizenship differently the way we are teaching. We should introduce peace education in Cameroon schools and colleges. And the work is found on Google. It is found everywhere. So what I'm saying is that we have been able to insist, and that is why I can take this opportunity to congratulate the History Society of Cameroon, which is insisting and proposing that the history of Cameroon should be taught. Because talk to anybody, they will tell you, is that true, what you're saying? They are teaching selected portions of the history of Cameroon. Selected portions, not the pure comprehensive history of Cameroon. I used to clown with my students of the third year that if I picked a Form 3 student of an Anglophone subsystem and bring him to write the exams in the university, he might be the best in a particular paper, or in some particular papers, decolonization of British Cameroon, decolonization of French Cameroons, which some of the students are seeing for the first time. Let me say something. If the history students who are specialized in history are seeing the history of Cameroon in some details for about their first time, around the 30th year in the university, what about those who did not do history? Who did other things, sciences, philosophy, geography, and all of that? It means that they have no notion. They have just tidbits, which have been carefully packaged to get the people not to know their history. Right. Or where some facts are being distorted. All of them know that 11th February is a youth day. All of them know that 20th May is the national day. But go further to ask them what particular things happened on that day. It is just history that they want to replay without knowing exactly what is happening.
Several decades after the two parts, the former East and West Cameroons, came together, the second president of the Republic, President Paul Biya, makes this confession. Is it a sign of change? Is it a sign of regret? What did you read within the lines of that confession, or the so-called confession?
Well, a sign of change. I do not see regrets, rather. I see change. Change which is inevitable. Because the change is not coming because there's a volition to do the change. The change is coming because the people have held tight to what they believe in. And that's what I said. Truth is a stubborn issue. And history is one of the most stubborn subjects that exist. Because whatever thing existed will remain. You can turn it inside out. One day, it will come to the limelight. This was the truth. I think we have seen tons and tons of documents leading to that aspect of assimilation. Yes, the confession is waiting for change or ready to open up for change. And that is why the change is respecting the Constitution. Because let us not be blind. I've heard journalists like you and others say that the president is considerate, he has started, he wants to respect the outcome of the major national dialogue, and that is why he wants to give the Anglophones or the people of the Northwest and Southwest regions a special status. Wrong. Wrong interpretation of Babila. It is not today that Mr. Biya is giving a special status.
But he said
that special status is found in the Constitution. Cameroonian and Cameroonian lawmakers have failed for 23 years not to implement a constitution that was adopted in 1996. If we talk about it in that manner, Babila, it seems as though the special status is something that has been crafted now. Article 62 of our Constitution is talks about the special status. 23 years ago, the special status was inscribed in our Constitution. It is not an offer by Mr. Biya. It's an offer by the people of Cameroon through their Constitution, which the guarantor of the Constitution failed to apply. That is my interpretation. Of course, we are told that that Constitution was supposed to be applied in some sort of progressive manner. So maybe force. It warranted many deaths, hundreds of villages to be burnt before we turn around and apply a constitution that was adopted 23 years ago. That's my
and the head of state said that measures have been taken to implement the special status as a solution to the Anglophone crisis. Do you think it is?
Yes, I think there is no... There is. Adequately, there is. But it is a procedure. I will not know how the measures are being taken. Because the Constitution, the constitutional provisions, Article 62, is just a clause, empty, without content. We should have been expecting that immediately after the major national dialogue, the Anglophones in particular, and goodwill Cameroonians should have been brought together, and Friends of Cameroon, to actually put the content of the special status in a public space where people are actually brought. So the Anglophones are going to be given some special status that we don't know where the content is coming from. It is the people, the Anglophone Cameroonians, the people of Southern Cameroonians, who are supposed to inject what we are negotiating. And if we are negotiating, we should be able to negotiate with our brothers to say, this is how far you went with your assimilationist tendencies. This is how far you went with the tendencies of marginalization, of pushing us to the margins of power. If we want to be together and we are accepting the special status, this is what we should be able to do. It shouldn't come from the oblivion where we are given some special status that we have not contributed to build. We should be the ones to build the special status, and we negotiate over the special status. It should not be done by some people and handed over as some bait.
The November session of Parliament is ongoing, and until now, no bill on the special status expected by the opposition, notably the Social Democratic Front, has been tabled in Parliament yet, and they are clamoring for this bill on the special status to be tabled in Parliament. Can the special status be defined this way?
Well, I think that understandably, I did not expect the National Assembly to begin immediately with a bill of special status. I know historically this is a session, a budgetary session. What I expected, Mr. Babila, is that immediately after the major national dialogue, immediately after, there was supposed to be a convening of an extraordinary session of Parliament to debate on the outcome of the major national dialogue. The most important thing should have been these special status. So as of now, the Cameroonians, maybe a special commission should have been put again in place to see what should be the content of the special status.
In your opinion?
But I know, I'm very optimistic that this session cannot end without some content. My worry is that this content will be coming from some oblivion, from some space that we don't know, because we are waiting for a bill and we don't know who has done the bill or where the bill is coming from. And what is clear in governance is those who will be doing this special status will still be doing everything to continue with the assimilation and the marginalization. They will want to dot a few I's and cut some T's to say, we are giving you this. But the special status, if we want to have a genuine special status, Mr. Babila, I think the content should be, I will not want to pretend in 1-2 minutes give the content of the special status. They should be able to rally the Anglophones to have an exclusive meeting of theirs to propose what they want.
The aspirations of the people.
Yes, the aspirations of the people. They should not get 2-3 people to come and sit that we don't know to come up with the special status. But of course, if we have to consider the special status, it is just simple. I can say it in a very blatant or blunt manner. The people want self-rule. They want self-governance. They want to be able to decide who their leaders should be. They should be able to decide what economic, political, and social development they want carried out by themselves. They want to have a say in governance. And the idea of le chef a toujours raison, the chief is always right, does not augur well in the mind frame of these people. We want to be able to choose our leaders, and we hold our leaders accountable. If they are not giving us what we want, we replace them and get another leader. We are very, very sensitive to appointments. And if there was some good faith, some element of good faith, we would not have been delving in provocative appointments when we are talking about special status.
Appointments of
senior divisional officers, secretary generals of councils, and so on and so forth. And of course, the Constitution, the special status. Let me say this. The President of the Republic is in the logic of respecting the Constitution of Cameroon. The Constitution of Cameroon talks about the special status. And he wants to respect that article of the Constitution by providing provisions for the special status. But what we should want for Cameroon is a total overhaul or revision of the Constitution and the content of whatsoever a special status can carry for this region.
Why should the Constitution be revised?
The Constitution should be revised. It should be overhauled. There are enormous. The powers, the powers of the executive is too crushing. Let me say that the Constitution talks about decentralization. But let me analyze that we have two forms of decentralization to the best of my appreciation. We have administrative decentralization and political decentralization. Political decentralization is when the political parties when the people decide their political leaders. But administrative decentralization is when power comes from the center and people are delegated to the different places to handle. That is why.
That's what we have in Cameroon.
That is what we have in Cameroon. We have the two. Administrative decentralization and political decentralization. But administrative decentralization overlords it over the political decentralization. That is why the sous-prefet thinks that I am the representative of the state, and he is above the elected mayor. That is why in the same constitution we state that the president will appoint regional persons who will be answerable to him, and he has the powers to dissolve those regional special status. The constitution talks about that. Let's peruse the constitution and know it, and if we know it, we are going to say that no matter, that is my appreciation, no matter what special status is granted to the people of the Northwest and Southwest regions, if we do not overhaul the constitution to reduce some of those powers of the executive, we are just going to be wasting time and postponing another problem in the future.
That will be what some describe as putting new wine in old bottle.
Modifying, because many things will change, but modifying and letting the things propel. The President of the Republic should not have all of those powers. We need a House of Chiefs. We want to be we want to decide the budget. We want to decide who is our mayor. How do we get the budget? How do we manage our schools? How do we manage our public service and all of that? We do not want to come to Yaoundé or go to Bamenda, because, or to Boya. The people of Manfe should be able to manage their stuff. The people from Kupe Maningoba, the people from Marua, the people from Kaele should be able to manage without getting. Let's give one small example, Babila. We write the concours. Enam is written in Yaoundé. The orals are done in Yaoundé. What about somebody who lives in Kolofata and who does not have a radio and does not know the result, and he needs to attend orals 2 days after? He has to move and travel for 3 days before getting to Yaoundé. He will arrive Yaoundé after the orals. We want practical decentralization, whereupon each region should give each region a particular number of entrants, those who are aspiring to get into ENAM, for example. And the Northwest region, 10 positions, let them organize it there and get their final results in the region and simply submit to ENAM. Things should not be centralized. Those are the type of governance that we want.
Okay, Prof, we're going to take a look at what the newspapers reported this week, the press review. The Star reports a fearful attack on a Roman Catholic priest in Manfe in the southwest region of Cameroon. According to the Post, President Paul Biya's Anglophone assimilation confession at the Paris Peace Forum shocked Cameroonians. The Guardian Post highlights pressure mounting on President Paul Biya to table the bill on the special status for the Northwest and Southwest regions in Parliament. Eden and the Median report that parliamentary and council elections will hold February 9, 2020, despite the raging armed conflicts in the Northwest and Southwest regions, as indicated by the Post and the Sun. To The Voice, President Paul Biya is playing dumb by convoking what the paper qualifies as high-risk elections. As reported by the Guardian Post, the Social Democratic Front earlier gave signals that it was going to boycott the municipal and legislative elections, but later said it will participate in the elections. Thus, the exclamation on the front page of The Horizon. Away from politics, The Advocate reports the 7-year jail term slammed on the rapist of a nursing mother. Thanks for staying with us. We are still with our guest, Professor Willibrod Ngwa. He is an associate professor in political history and international relations, and he is also an expert in international negotiations. And there are some politicians, some civil society leaders who think that for the Anglophone problem to be solved, President Paul Biya must negotiate with Sisiku Ayotabe, the other Anglophone leaders, including Mancho BBC, Penn Terence, and all the rest. What do you think about this?
I think that, to be very fair, I will not want to carve out in the naming strategy to say who should be negotiated with. I think I would rather say, if we have to go out of the crisis, we need to negotiate with the Anglophones. And before negotiating with the Anglophones should be allowed and encouraged to have a meeting of theirs, to select their leaders and actually delegate those leaders who can properly articulate their problems. Let me say that Siseko Ayuk and his team and the different leaderships have proven, not only to Cameroonians but to the world, that they have some power of control. And that is why they are locked up. And when they say that there should be ghost towns are respected. When they say there will be no movements tomorrow, there are no movements. So there is some element of their leadership that we cannot dispute. But what we are saying, in order to minimize the divide even amongst the Anglophones, they should be encouraged. Siseko has no... Let me say something. You permit me. If the President of the Republic announced a major national dialogue, and a major national dialogue has taken place, I drew 3 things from the dialogue. The first and most important is that it was a public validation that an Anglophone problem exists. And if an Anglophone problem exists, then it should vindicate, as a second point, all those who have mentioned, who were arrested because of the problem, because we have accepted a problem. That's why there is dialogue. And if there's a problem, all those who protested because of the problem had genuine reasons to protest. The third thing, the dialogue should be a window of hopes to humanity, to the people of Cameroon, that at least we have started dialoguing. Our problem has been considered and accepted, and a special attention has been put onto it. And when the President of the Republic says we attempted to assimilate them and we failed, that's why we are giving them a special status. It is further recognizing the problem, and therefore to solve the problem and minimize the division amongst Anglophones, these people, there is no reason under the sun to be holding anybody behind bars. The Cameroonian nation rather needs to apologize to these people, release them, call for national reconciliation, do social justice, because we are talking about peace. We need these people out of the prisons. We need general amnesty to all of those who picked up arms because of the crisis. Especially when the president says that we attempted and failed and we need to give them special status. Let us talk with them. That is the negotiation.
But the government, the government on the other side is saying these people you're calling for their release committed crimes, they violated the law, and they have to face the heavy arm of the law. They have to be punished, and they have to apologize to the nation. But you're saying that the nation or the government should apologize to them.
We are talking about negotiations, and the both sides. Let me say something. I'm always tickled when some people say that in order to dialogue, it must be this particular person or this particular person. To me, it doesn't make sense. My friend Ayok Tabi must not be the one to dialogue before the problem is resolved. It must not be a must. Because any leadership from prison, from the bushes, can dialogue, and the outcome of that dialogue should be the liberation of these people. In the same vein, the government on their own hand should not be able to insist that these people committed this, these people committed this, they are going to carry the heavy hands of the law. Because each heavy hand of the law further radicalizes more of the followers. And therefore, when we are talking negotiations, we don't come along with the number of the deaths. So the both sides should come and talk and negotiate. In that negotiations, we should be able to give concessions. And one of the principal concessions to the best of my appreciation, is that to the Anglophone community, to the leadership or the leaderships of the struggle, these leaders should be liberated and checked. And on the other hand, they should understand that these people have been able to, with the powers, their God-given powers, their God-given initiative backed by truth, has been able to get Cameroon to this way. And if we realize that we have been engaged in falsehood, I'm talking about government, then we should be able to throw these charges. Those in prison should be also be willing to talk with government. The government officials should be willing to talk with those who will be released and those. But it will be important that this talking should be done in the presence of a third party who should valorize.
An international body?
Not necessarily international body. A third party who should ensure that the outcome of the dialogue would be implemented. But since executive in Cameroon has too much hands, strong hands over the country. Let me say that the religious authorities in this country could, some religious personalities could be as witness or witnesses to such a dialogue. But since people have been very skeptical on governance, we have had Fumban conference. The outcome was never implemented because there was no follow-up. We have had the tripartite, outcome never implemented. We've had all of the constitutional talks that went on, the outcome were never followed to the latter. We've had several of the dialogues. So this gives the reasons to the Anglophones not to have trust, not to have faith in whatsoever is happening. And that is why I can come in now to say, yes, we need an international observer, because there is no historical event in this country that has brought the Cameroonians together to dialogue and the outcomes are implemented, especially between the Anglophones and Francophones. Mr. Babila, let me note that this crisis started its manifestations in the 1980s when Anglophone elite of the Northwest and Southwest regions resident in Douala wrote a memoranda, tons and tons of memoranda, to the Presidency of the Republic. This would have been nailed to the board when it started, the other phase. When the Goriji Dinkas started protesting against the name of the country that had been changed to the Republic of Cameroon, this thing would have been nailed to the board. That's why I talk about a review of the Constitution, so that the name of the country could become, or should become, the United Republic of Cameroon, if we have to live together in peace, in concord and harmony. The name, that's what I talk about, the revision of the Constitution. Yes, the negotiation should be that the both parties should be ready to make concessions. And there should be no hardline preconditions to say we must talk. That's why I should call on the diasporans, those in the diaspora. Because when you call any Cameroonian who is living in Cameroon to talk, you get reins over the social media, how the people have been bought over. Because there's an error that those who master and can provide solutions to this problem must be in prison or must be in the diaspora. Wrong. It can be you, Babila. It can be a small Form 1 boy who is not even interested in the issue. He can provide a solution. So we are saying that
you said
given the opportunity.
You said if we must stay together.
If we must stay together.
Some people,
in peace, in concord, and in harmony.
A section of Anglophone Cameroonians clamoring for independence, restoration of the independence of the former Southern Cameroons. What do you think about this independent option? What is your take? Is it a feasible option?
I don't know what you mean by feasible. It is a feasible option. It is an option in international relations. They are not the first. South Sudan is an example. The Gambia, Eritrea, they are examples. It's feasible. The question is, do we want it to happen to Cameroon? If no, the first thing to be done is that a referendum should be organized so that those people should decide what they want for their governance.
Christian Cardinal Tumi and other members of the AGC organizing team sent out some letters, and the man of God told me that out of over 1,000,
say 69% want
more than 70%,
yes,
said they wanted absolute independence.
Yes.
And just a few now talked about some between decentralization and federalism, but a good chunk of those who responded said they wanted absolute independence.
Yes. That is a research that has been founded. It doesn't mean that if we conducted a referendum today, we are going to get the same results. Let me say this. All of us want peace to reign. The government of the Republic of Cameroon should engage in practical action in the field to convince. I said secession is an option. Federation is another. Decentralization is another. We can bring the secessionists. I don't want to call them secessionists because they want to restore the state of Southern Cameroon that existed. They want to restore the state of West Cameroon that achieved independence on the 1st of January 1960. Now, if we want these people to live together in oneness, in concord, and in harmony without thinking about secession, we must stop playing the games we are playing. Because if we keep doing the same things, using the same formula, we are going to have the same results. And therefore, my advice and insistence should be that the government of the day should engage in practical, convincing actions on the ground that would make those who want restoration to start seeing reason why we should live on, so that they can join the others who are federalists, those who want decentralization. So that 70%, by concrete action, we can win 30% again back. But if we don't carry out the concrete action, Mr. Babila, Anglophone should be allowed to choose their leaders to represent them. We should convene another dialogue with the Anglophone's experts, with the content of the special status. They should liberate these people, I mean all of those, the Sisekos, general amnesty. They should be able to think that we actually committed some crimes against these people, and we are genuinely willing to make amends. It is not through the words of mouth. It is through concrete action.
Professor Zingo, we interviewed some Cameroonians. Let's listen to them, and we'll be right back in some few minutes.
Given the problems we have gone through in the last 3 years or to 4 years, all of us should strive to be honest with one another and try to come towards one another. And I think this is what the head of state's statement was reflecting, that historically, politically, scientifically, in a setup where you have 80% majority and 20% minority, the tendency has been historically, politically, that the majority, especially when it's 80%, will want to assimilate or integrate the minority. But the head of state, in his statement, from what I understood, was telling the world that in his political vision, given the recommendations of the major national dialogue which he initiated and convened, given the revendications of the people of the Northwest and Southwest, he, the head of state, has decided to listen to the people of the Northwest and Southwest in keeping with his own vision, and to make sure that the people of the Northwest and Southwest preserve their specificities within the framework of what is referred to as a special status region or special status regions. I think this is a statement of sincerity, a statement of candor, a statement of honesty by a leader who holds the people of the Northwest dear to his heart. He didn't, I mean, it was not like he was insinuating something. He was clear.
Our original idea for pushing across our issues with the government was to find a lasting solution to this Northwest-Southwest problem which is plaguing and killing our people. That is the reason why, contrary to the opinion of most Northwest-Southwesterners, we came to the National Dialogue Table. And when the issue of form of state, which was tactfully kept out, was forcefully brought in because of the pressure we mounted, a sketch came out that was of Article 62, sub 2, that of the Constitution, that the special status, put it that way, will be given to the Northwest and Southwest region.
Elections are a problem-solving mechanism for a democratic society. In every democracy, elections as a way to go forward. So those who believe that because there has been bloodshed, or because there have been difficulties, or because of this or that, there should be no elections, what those people are saying is that they don't want democracy anymore, because, or that they don't want to solve problems anymore in a democratic, civilized manner. After all, elections that have been convened for the 9th of February were convened on the basis of three things. One, it is the Republican agenda of Cameroon, a democratic Cameroon. Two, it is the law of Cameroon. Three, Cameroonians themselves, who are Democrats and who want democracy, know and want elections, because that is the most civilized, the most legal, the most legitimate, the best political way to ascertain, to determine whether the people accept you to lead them or not. The worst thing any political party can do is to say, because there are tensions, let's say, for example, in the Northwest or in the Southwest, as we've seen in the last almost 2 years or so, or in the extreme North, where Boko Haram insurgency has been disturbing us, that there should be no election. If you do that, it is like a democratic society running away from itself, running away from its purposes, from its essence, running away from its option. If you run away from that, it means you're running away from a republic, which is an alternative to a republic. You see what? An alternative to a republic is that you are a monarchy. An alternative to a republic is that you are looking for a dictatorship. An alternative to a republic is that you want chaos. And I don't think anybody wants chaos. I don't think anybody wants dictatorship.
Welcome back. We are running up this edition of The Inside with issues concerning the upcoming municipal and legislative elections announced by the President of the Republic, scheduled for February 2020. As a political scientist, do you think that organizing elections in Cameroon in the present socio-political and security atmosphere is proper?
Well, talking as a political scientist, I think it's proper for the organizer of the elections, because politics is coining policies to gain power and govern the people. And Mr. Biya and the CPDM know absolutely that in certain areas they want to get the power before they start making any amendments and recommendations and reforms. We are very sure that maybe the CPDM will want to take the seats from the Northwest, but I think it is suicide mission as far as the Northwest and Southwest regions are concerned. It's suicide mission because of the insecurity. And it brings me to what I've said often. One of the real major problems in this country are partisan politicians. Because I am very scandalized and surprised by the attitude of politicians accepting to go for elections and undermining the killings and the insecurity situation in the Northwest and Southwest regions. I have not been to my home. I doubt how I can be able to go to campaign if I wanted to be elected. So I think that if my opinion were sought, I would have said maybe 2 more years be granted. We are not in any haste. We are rather in a haste for peace to return to Cameroon, not for elections, because I'm sure that there will be some of those places without elections. But governance is using that to win over. I can already tell you the results. Many of the parliamentarians who are from the northwest and southwest regions will come back to represent those regions because there will be no votes in some areas. And the military will vote in some areas. And the military will certainly vote for particular persons. So, in the northwest and southwest region, except the special status says that there will be no elections there. And they will have their own elections in their own way. That will be pacifying as far as the special status.
Some political parties of the opposition have said they are not going to take part in the upcoming elections. The CPP, the PAP and others have said we can't take part in the election in the present context with regards to the crisis in the northwest and southwest regions. And the SDF had earlier said that for elections to be organized, this situation has to be solved. The crisis have to be solved. But later on said we're going to take part in the election or in the elections because staying away is not solving any problem. Armchair politics is not solving any problem. You need to be in power in order to influence happenings in the society.
Be in what power? Anyway, each politician has the right to take the decisions that they want to take, going into elections or not going into elections. But I want to think that the better option would have been to postpone the elections, and the Cameroonian people were supposed to insist that peace returns to the northwest and southwest regions. If not, I consider a complacence of the majority, the looking away of the majority on the plight, the suffering plight of the populations of the northwest and southwest regions. The people are suffering, they are dying, the houses are being burned, the burning of the houses still continues as we speak. We think that Cameroonians should be sensitive as a people, and they should not continually create the divide, because as they keep on doing what they are doing, they are creating a divide. And if I have to talk to you about SDF, I think they too are just playing politics.
An ally of Professor Maurice come to talking about the divide. An ally of Professor Maurice come to Christian.
Of course, if
former advisor at the presidency of the Republic,
they should not go to elections.
The elections as confirming cessation, confirming the division of the country.
Of course, yes. Because if we have elections, we are confirming the division, and we are making the people from those regions to be further radicalized. Because what they are increasingly having in mind is that the greatest majority of Cameroonians don't care about their plight. And this will further run down their veins and their blood, and they are going to make the divide clearer. I think what I should say is that, well, the elections have been declared. I think I should only wish those who are vying for any positions good luck. But I think some of the people will be getting to power, to parliament, to councils over corpses, because it's evident.
Prof, do you have a last word before we go?
This, the last word I would like to say is that we want peace. As a peace crusader, all my life has been to research and talk, preach peace and social justice. From that perspective, I would like to say that every Cameroonian wants peace. But peace is nothing concrete that you take and put in your pocket and go around with it. Peace is just a wish. That is why the Muslims say Assalamu alaikum. That is why the Christians talk about shalom, or peace be upon you. Peace in our local languages is not a word. So peace building is more important, because we can only have peace. So peace is a consequence of concrete action in the field. And this concrete action should always be to roll back conflict situations. Since peace and conflicts are both sides, two sides of the same coin, it is important to always uplift the side of the side of peace against the side of conflicts by carrying on concrete action. Cameroonians need peace today more than ever before, and every single Cameroonian should be a vector of peace by carrying on concrete actions, the way we talk, the way we act, the way we appreciate others, so that we can at least talk about humanity. Nobody has the right to kill anybody, even a madman.
Professor Willibrod Ngwa, historian, political scientist, and peace crusader. Thanks for joining us in this edition of The Inside.
It was my pleasure, and I'll always be open to share with you what I think about national and international issues. Thanks for coming.
Thanks. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us.